Good evening. Welcome to today's class. Today I'm handling topic 5 of public procurement. And topic 5 is about organization of procurement in the public sector. We are going to see how procurement is organized, who does what. That is the main area in this topic. Who are the major categories of individuals and committees involved in public procurement, and what is their role? Because there is a way procurement is organized so that everyone is supposed to be given their own responsibilities to be able to undertake in public procurement. And in case one area does not undertake their own responsibility, it means the entire procurement process will be compromised. So we shall see this organization of public procurement and see who are involved in public procurement in the public sector and what is their role. So we shall begin with the accounting officer, a very important officer in public procurement, and the role they play. They play a very big role in public procurement. Let me read some of the things they do. Number 1 is to ensure procurement is within the approved budget. So if there is a budget and procurement proceedings have to take place, it is the role of the accounting officer to ensure that the procurement is within the approved budget. They also do what? They constitute of procurement and asset disposal committees. All the committees in public procurement, we shall look at them briefly later. They have to be, the accounting officer has to be part of those committees. They also ensure procurement plans are prepared and they conform to the fiscal framework and fiscal policy objectives. They ensure that proper documentation is there for every procurement proceeding. So documentation is part of the work of the accounting officer. They also ensure public procurement complies with the Public Finance Management Act. They also ensure that all the contracts are signed, and they are the ones who approve and sign all the public procurement contracts, among the many roles they play. The second one is the procurement function. It's like in private institutions, it's like the procurement department. In public procurement, it's called the procurement function. So it will conduct everything to do with procurement. Number 1, to maintain and update list of registered suppliers. They liaise with the authority. If you see authority in public procurement, you're talking about the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority. So the procurement function liaises with the authority in respect to register of procuring agents. They prepare, they publish, they distribute procurement documentation. That's the work of the procurement function. They coordinate the receiving and opening of tender documents. They submit a list of registered and pre-qualified suppliers to the accounting officer for approval. They issue procurement and asset disposal documents to candidates, all those documents which are required by candidates to be able to qualify for public procurement procedure or proceedings. Among others, they publish tender awards. They prepare contract documents in line with the award decision. They prepare and issue debriefing letters. They prepare contract variations and modification of contracts. So basically, this is a procurement department. So it does everything related to public procurement or the physical procurement of goods, works, and services. Apart from the procurement function, we have the tender opening committee. It is a committee that is formed to open tenders. Remember, after tenders have been submitted after the deadline, during the deadline, not after the deadline, before the deadline. So once the tender documents have been submitted, there is a tender opening committee. And if you forget everything, just understand the tender opening committee, their work is to open tenders after they have been submitted by the prospective tenderers. So their work is to open tenders. They will assign a number to each tender. They will read the basics of every tender document. After that, they will write a report and report exactly what happened in all the stages of tender opening. So that is a tender committee. Of course, there is a tender evaluation committee. After opening, a tender goes to evaluation. So there is a committee. And this committee is supposed to evaluate tenders. And the procedure for evaluating tenders has already been put forward or put forth in the tender document. So the procedure is well known. So they will use that procedure to evaluate the tenders. They will communicate. They will seek clarification in case there is any clarification to be made. They shall also sign the declaration forms after evaluating all the tenders. So after the evaluation committee, we have the head of procurement. Of course, he heads the procurement department. He coordinates every activity that takes place in procurement because he heads or he's the head of the procurement department. After the head of procurement department, we have the contract implementation team. It is a team that makes sure the contract has been implemented. So it's one thing to give a contract to a prospective or to the best supplier, the person who won the contract, and it's another thing to implement the contract, to make sure this particular contractor can be able to do whatever they promised to do in the contract. So there is a team that follows up a contract to make sure it has been implemented. The next one is the project manager. Of course, if you're dealing with a project, there has to be a project manager who will foresee all the activities of that project to ensure the project starts on time, it ends on time. The requirements for the project to start and to be conducted are well stipulated. They do cost analysis. They draw up schedules for receiving goods. They prepare duties and responsibilities of staff who will be included or who will participate in that particular project. And they facilitate the entire project. Performance reports that are made by them. They communicate the desired project changes in case the project has some changes. Remember, a project has a starting time and a finish time. And in between the starting and the finish time, there could be changes. So a project manager will communicate such changes. They do the inspection of the project. They facilitate payment of goods and services rendered to the project. So their work rotates around that particular project in order to make sure they can manage a project from the time it begins up to the time it ends. So they play a very critical role. There is another committee called Inspection and Acceptance Committee. This committee just inspects items when they are received, and after inspection they accept. It's not automatic for them to accept, they can also reject. So their work is to inspect, accept, or reject. So if you're procuring goods, then it means when goods arrive, they have to be inspected. Those which comply, they have to be accepted. Those which don't comply with maybe specifications, they have to be rejected. Of course, after that, they write an inspection report. They can also come up with an inspection certificate to show that we inspected these goods. Remember, all these documents are critical when it comes to archiving them. Remember, we said in public procurement, documents are supposed to be kept for the next 6 years. So every procedure or every aspect that takes place, every process, every activity that takes place in public procurement, it has to be documented and then archived for a period of 6 years. So that is the Inspection and Acceptance Committee. There is the Asset Disposal Committee. Of course, their work is to dispose of assets which have reached the end of their useful life. What will they do? They will identify the assets to dispose of. They will identify the market. They will identify the prices to use to dispose of, the method to dispose of, and they will come up with a reserve price for disposal. So after that, of course, they'll prepare a disposal report to show these items were disposed of. Well, we used this method. This was the price. So the report has to be there at the end of the process. There is another user department. There is the user department. The user department is the department that uses the product that you are procuring, whether it is a good, work, or a service. So it means they have to be involved in the entire procurement process from the beginning to the end. They are the ones who give you the specification. They should make sure that the procurement, they do a lot of inspection to make sure that the specifications given are complied with. So that is the user department. In case of any amendments, it is the user department who will raise that alarm and say, we need the following to be amended. So very critical department in public procurement. Then we have the Cabinet Secretary or the National Treasury. We looked at the National Treasury when we were looking at bodies involved in public procurement. They play a very big role in public procurement. Let me read one or two. They gazette procurement rules and procedures through the acts and regulations. They also appoint members to the various boards. Remember, there are different boards in public procurement. They are the ones, it is the Cabinet Secretary or the National Treasury that appoints those members of those boards. They determine terms and conditions of service of the review board members. So they are the ones to tell us the terms and conditions of service of the review board members. They also inform Cabinet and National Treasury of all the government contracts that exceed 5 billion Kenyan shillings. So these are very huge contracts. They have to be involved. There is also the Attorney General. Attorney General, they clear all government contracts of values exceeding 5 billion. If you're dealing with a very huge contract or values, procurement of goods, work, or services that are exceeding 5 billion, Attorney General has to be involved. They authorize publication of Procurement Act and regulation, and then they also represent the state in international procurement legal proceedings. So all those are the roles of the Attorney General who are directly involved in public procurement. After looking at the organization of public procurement, there is another area called consortium buying. Consortium buying is a collaborative type of arrangement in which procuring entities with common interest come together to combine their individual requirements so that they can form a huge requirement. So they come up with small individual requirements, they put them together to be able to achieve economies of scale. So they can be able to achieve the benefits associated with buying in bulk. That is consortium purchasing, and it offers a lot of benefits in procurement as well as limitations. Limitations are also many when it comes to consortium buying, but it is an arrangement that is very well known in public procurement. Then we have the use of procuring agents and asset disposal agents. There are times when a procuring entity is not able to complete an entire procurement process on its own. So it requires an agent to do the procuring or asset disposal. That is when the agents come in. So if a procuring entity lacks internal capacity, it can employ the services of a procuring agent. The second reason is if it is unable completely to establish a procurement and asset disposal unit, the one we saw in the beginning, the procuring unit, then it is allowed to use procuring agents. And if it can also demonstrate the inability to use services of other state organs. So it is not automatic that if you need an agent, you just go to get one and use them. it has to be followed by some regulations or rules before you choose an agent. You should really be able to demonstrate that you don't have the capability of doing procurement on your own. So these agents are very critical. They assist in public procurement. So basically that is how procurement is organized. And all those are individuals or committees or boards that are involved directly with public procurement. And if any of them does not play their role, then it means public procurement may not stand the chance. So it means all of them have to do their part to ensure public procurement is successful. So that is it concerning this topic. So a very important topic that will enable you to understand who is involved in public procurement and what are their roles. Apart from the bodies which we looked at in a different topic, now this is the organization of public procurement. So all the roles and all the activities that take place and who does those roles and what are they expected to do. So this is it for this topic today.